Whoa, so I want to talk about this picture a little bit in detail. If you look below me, it says a group of people known as Negro Indians in Dulac, Louisiana. Dulac Mission Indians. We're going to talk about why they was in a mission. We're going to first come out of this document from the University of New Orleans. Both sides of the barbed wire, lives of German POWs and African Americans in Camp Claiborne. And the map above me is depicting all the concentration camps that was going on in the state during that time. This red dot right here is going to be where them Dulac Indians was at. Then some of the regions where some of my people from, I see there was all camps there: Natchitoches, Keyshaw, Homer, Shreveport. And another camp I'm going to talk about in detail is going to be Camp Ruston. The U.S. War Department designated Camp Ruston as an anti-Nazi camp. Furthermore, Camp Ruston secretly held the crew of captured U-boat U-505 separate from POWs to prevent the news traveling to Germany of the capture of German encryption codes. This is one of the few cases when the United States intentionally violated the Geneva Convention by sequestering the U-505 crew. And right below me, in addition, Scroot notes that many former German POWs argued that African Americans were prisoners like us. Furthermore, some POWs argued that Germany's racial laws were more benign and less hypocritical than America's. Gonna start at the top. In addition, Scroot argues that white Louisianians treated German POWs better than African American citizens. For example, Scroot includes the story that rice planters in Louisiana treated POWs to seafood suppers and call girls. Needless to say, African Americans received no such positive rewards. Also, due to Jim Crow laws, German POWs were able to use white bathrooms while their African American guards had to wait outside the bathroom door. POWs also had the ability to fraternize and blow kisses to American girls, lounge at truck stops, and raise the Nazi flag at the camp without fear of punishment. Now, the main reason why Camp Ruston is so significant because Camp Ruston was one of the largest prisoner of war camps in the United States during World War II. Now, Camp Ruston was one of 4 large internment facilities established in Louisiana to house the hundreds of thousands of captured Axis soldiers who were transported to the U.S. After a survey of several candidate sites in North Louisiana, the War Department selected the Grambling location in part because of its proximity to the Vicksburg, Shreveport, and Pacific Railroad, a necessity for the efficient movement of men and materials. Officials bought 750 acres eminent domain from the landowners for $24K and promised the return of the property after the war, which didn't happen. Local contractor T.L. James and Company built the camp on a standardized plan. And the T.L. James Company was established in 1926 by Thomas Louis James, a former sawmill worker, as an investment banking firm. Today, the closely held family corporation is one of the largest road building contractors in the South. It's literally a multi-billion-dollar company. The next article by the University of New Orleans, The Power of Leaving, Black Agency and the Great Migration in Louisiana from 1890 to 1939. But before I get to that, I want to talk about why they was migrating in the first place. And this is a current curriculum at Yale University, the Negro Holocaust, lynching and race riots in the U.S. And literally right before the Holocaust, it was a so-called Negro Exodus, meaning that everybody was pushed out of the... Now also keep in mind that from 1840 to about 1890, New Orleans was the 3rd largest city in the nation. So the state of Louisiana itself was one of the most populated states in the nation. Now back to this document. Now, during this Great Migration, Southern blacks had expanded to every region in the United States that had migrated west into Kansas, Missouri, and beyond since the beginning of the Exodus. The movement of black Southerners to the Northwest, Midwest, and especially the migration surges of the 1890s and the 1920s had ensured the black population of cities from Philadelphia to Los Angeles expanded. In Louisiana, the black populations of New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport increased dramatically over the preceding decades as men and women brought their families from plantations to urban centers to build a better life. Which is literally what happened to my family. See, when I got to looking up like land patents and all that, and looked up the locations and whatnot, due to flooding and health concerns, the parish seat, which was once Homer, moved to Athens in 1846, and in 1848 a fire destroyed the courthouse and all the records in it. See, a lot of people forget during the 1800s, Louisiana literally had the most free people of color, and they had the most Victorians during that Victorian era, right? All them people was in Louisiana. So a lot of these people are our family, and we got inheritance through these people. Now, home of Louisiana is Claiborne Parish, and in 1876, they wrote this newspaper saying the question of migrating to Kansas has been agitated lately in some portion of Claiborne Parish by the colored people. On this question, we should advise our colored friends, as Colonel John S. Young did in Lisbon in a speech that he made there a few days ago. If you feel disposed to go to Kansas at all, make up a public purse. And the etymology of a purse is a royal treasury. So that was a way of saying, hey, put y'all resources and y'all money together. Now, black farm workers were far more susceptible to displacement than whites when the federal government thought the evictions became necessary. In their study of federal evictions of sharecroppers during the New Deal era, James Adams and D. Gordon wrote tenants were evicted from newly acquired RA and FSA lands for two reasons: because they were the wrong race in segregated communities, and because they didn't qualify as clients. One of the best known and documented resettlement programs is that of the Transylvania Plantation, which, when the land was developed as an all-white settlement in 1938, caused the displacement of all the land's black residents. And Adams and Gordon further explained that these resettlement projects were part of a larger effort to modernize rural America. Now, according to the USDA census in 1910, they said blacks own 20 million acres of land in the South, and today barely own 1%. And when we look into the value of that land loss, black farmers lost $326 billion worth of land in the 1900s. And they list the reasoning as the land loss is due to discriminatory USDA lending policies, forced sales of co-owned land called heirs property, among other factors, which is the reason why you hear me talk about the heirs so much. We are the heirs to the land. Remember, this court case, they let us know the United States does not own the land of the ancient mound builders of North America. Moors or Moors are the title holders. And though they try to confuse us with these different classifications, like Moor and Indian, for example, which are technically both exonyms, but remember that under the Constitution, treaties become the supreme law of the land. So when we look into the Treaty of the Choctaw and Chickasaw in 1866, Article 4, that all laws shall be equal in their operation upon Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes, and that no distinction affecting the latter shall be at any time made. So even in these museums, when they depict our people, saying that they're either an Indian or saying that they're a Moor, the fact is that they all have a connection to the ancient American Negro through language and other things. And this is from London, 2007. Now back to these folks flooding out our people. Now, these pictures are from Seattle between the years of 1897 and the years of 1911. They said 40 million tons of earth was moved. Now, 40 million tons of earth. Peep them water hoses down there. The water hoses is sluicing using hydropower water hoses. Now, Seattle's in Washington State. And remember, Washington State was basically like DC before DC. So much so that they tried to name Washington State Columbia, but the name got rejected several times. And remember, Columbia is the female personification of the United States. Now, in that female personification, America was depicted as a woman, like Africa, who was only partly dressed, typically in bright feathers, which invariably formed her headdress. She often held a parrot and was seated on a caiman or an alligator with a cornucopia. Coming from Brown University, sitting on an alligator, holding a parrot with a cornucopia, or like this here, Asia, Europe, Africa, America, again holding a parrot. Now we're going to go deeper into part 2, but I want to end it on this. There's numerous maps of California being depicted as an island with a whole river going through it, and most of the time it's usually depicted as the Red Sea. Now check this out.
Most Americans don't know about this massive lake that used to exist in California and how this gigantic body of water disappeared, all due to one crucial mistake by the US government. The Central Valley in California wasn't always farmland. It was a freshwater lake called Lake Corcoran that flowed through the Carquinez Strait into the Pacific Ocean. The lake was formed from rainfall and snowmelt running down the Sierra Nevada mountains. As temperatures started rapidly rising 6,000 years ago, unusually high levels of of snowmelt was overflowing Lake Corcoran. The water ripped through the mountains of Western California, carving out massive canals the water was able to run through. The water eventually made it to the Pacific and settled in a valley which later became known as San Francisco Bay. These channels got deeper and deeper, eventually draining most of Lake Corcoran, except for a body of water which would be known as Tulare Lake. Tulare Lake was the largest body of water west of the Mississippi and actually existed all the way up until 1930.